Right now in South Korea, there is a man who just performed the public autopsy on his own dead marriage, and the results are honestly more terrifying than any horror movie you've seen this year. Imagine a guy who has a stable, respected government job, the kind of position parents brag about at dinner parties, going onto an anonymous professional board to explain why his life fell apart. You might expect a story about a secret gambling debt or a dramatic affair, right? But no. This was a slow, agonizing death by 1,000 tiny paper cuts. He describes his marriage not as a partnership, but as a marathon where neither person could even agree. Neither person could even agree on which foot to move first. They were paralyzed before they even left the house because they had to debate the exact angle of their footsteps, and they had to debate the precise milliliter of water they should drink every 5 minutes. It sounds ridiculous, like complaining that your sandwich isn't a hot bowl of soup. But when you're living it every single day, that sandwich becomes a battlefield. He realized that the person sleeping next to him wasn't just a different individual. She was an entirely different species with a completely incompatible operating system. It's like trying to play a high-definition video game on a toaster. You can keep pushing the buttons all you want, but nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen except a lot of smoke and a very bad smell. But why would anyone actually stay in a situation that clearly makes them miserable? Why did this man, who clearly saw the warning signs, decide to walk down that aisle anyway? Well, it's about the brutal, cold-blooded logic of the human market. Think about it. We live in a world where everything is a transaction, where we're all just aggressively fighting. We are all aggressively fighting for our tiny slice of the financial pie. Relationships have stopped being about two souls connecting and have started being about two balance sheets merging. In the hyper-competitive landscape of modern Korea, a wife isn't just a partner. She's often seen as a status symbol or a piece of property that needs to perform a certain way. She needs to perform a certain way to justify the investment. And for many women today, the demands have shifted. They aren't just looking for a husband. They're looking for a specific kind of lifestyle that they feel they are owed by the universe. They demand a high level of financial security while often harboring a deep simmering resentment. They harbor a deep simmering resentment for the very system that provides it. It's a ruthless game where people are commodified and everyone is trying to extract the maximum value. Everyone is trying to extract the maximum value out of the other person while giving up as little as possible. When you treat love like a business merger, don't be surprised when the board of directors starts fighting. Don't be surprised when the board of directors starts fighting over the office supplies. So how does a society even get to this point? Why is the friction between men and women reaching such a boiling point in this specific corner of the world? You have to understand the local obsession with being average. Everyone in Korea is terrified of being left behind, so they chase this imaginary middle ground. They chase this imaginary middle ground that doesn't actually exist. They want the average apartment, which actually costs $1 million. They want the average wedding, which is a massive, soul-crushing production. This creates a cultural trap where you're constantly measuring your partner against a checklist. You are measuring your partner against a checklist that someone else wrote. On top of that, the gender divide has become a massive, gaping canyon. You have men moving toward a very traditional, merit-based worldview because they feel the world is unfair, while many women are adopting a hyper-individualistic framework that rejects the old ways entirely. They are living in the same city, eating the same food, but they are existing in two completely different realities. When these two realities collide in a 50-square-meter apartment, it's not a romance, it's a civil war. The local dating market has become a high-stakes gamble where nobody is showing their true cards. Nobody is showing their true cards until the papers are signed, and by then it's usually too late. But wait, if the friction is so obvious, what happened when these people actually got what they asked for? What happens when they finally land that perfect partner on paper? This is where the hypocrisy really starts to shine. Our guy admitted he saw the red flags. He saw the political differences, the religious clashes, even the tattoos that his gut told him were a sign. They were a sign of a lifestyle he didn't agree with. But he silenced those voices because he was a victim of his own pride. He convinced himself that love conquers all or that he was open-minded enough to handle it. In reality, he was just terrified of the immediate pain of a breakup. He was terrified of the social shame of being single again. He made a desperate gamble on the transformative power of marriage, thinking that once they were legally bound, she would somehow change into the person he wanted her to be. And guess what? The cold logic of reality doesn't care about your romantic fantasies. She didn't change, and why should she? She thought he liked her for who she was. She thought he liked her for who she was because he was the one who stayed. The moment he tried to assert his own standards, she felt betrayed. It's the ultimate backfire. They both got what they wanted, a marriage, but they ended up with a prison sentence. They ended up with a prison sentence because they were too cowardly to admit the foundation was rotten. Does this mean the entire system is failing? Are we looking at a future where everyone just stays in their own little bubble forever? Honestly, if you look at the way things are going, that's exactly where we're headed. We are moving toward a society of total isolation. People are realizing that the cost of domestic life, the emotional drain, is simply too high. The constant negotiation and the loss of personal peace are costs many are unwilling to pay. Why bother fighting over a dishcloth when you can live alone and never have to explain yourself? The empathy that used to hold families together is being replaced by a radical kind of self-preservation. You see it everywhere. People are giving up on dating, giving up on marriage, and giving up on kids. They are giving up because they've seen the autopsies online and they don't want to be the next body. The marriage brand is in a state of hyperinflation. The price of entry is skyrocketing, but the quality of the product is hitting rock bottom. We're looking at a future where people might live in the same building or even the same room, but they'll only communicate through apps to avoid the negotiation exhaustion. They do this to avoid the negotiation exhaustion of actually looking another human in the eye. Think about the sheer absurdity of it all. We spend years researching which smartphone to buy or which car has the best gas mileage. But we walk into the most important contract of our lives based on a feeling that we usually ignore the moment it tells us something we don't want to hear. We have these ancestral warnings, that sinking feeling in your stomach, that feeling when your partner says something that makes your blood run cold. But we call it nerves and keep walking toward the cliff. The system is designed to keep the train moving. Once you've paid for the wedding hall and invited the relatives, there are no exit ramps, and you're strapped into a roller coaster that you know is going to crash. But you're too embarrassed to ask the operator to stop the ride. We've traded our long-term sanity for short-term social comfort. And now we're surprised that the house is on fire. To really understand how bad this is, imagine two captains on a small ship in a violent storm. These two people genuinely believe they love each other. They both agree that they want to survive and find land. But here's the catch. One captain is looking at a map of the Pacific Ocean, and the other is looking at a map of the Atlantic. They are on the same boat in the same storm, but they are looking at two completely different worlds. Every time the boat needs to turn, they fight. One insists on turning left to avoid a reef that only exists on his map. The other screams to turn right to catch a current that only exists on hers. They aren't bad people. They aren't trying to sink the ship. They are both working as hard as they can to save it. But because their maps are different, their hard work is actually what's killing them. The more they try to fix the situation, the more they tear the ship apart. Society told them that if they just loved each other enough, the maps would eventually merge. But maps aren't just paper. They're printed on your soul during your childhood. They don't merge. They only rip. The divorce wasn't a failure of character. It was the only way to stop the fighting before they both drowned in the abyss. It's a cynical, mocking reality, but some gaps aren't meant to be bridged. They're meant to be a warning. You can't sail a ship with two maps. And you can't build a life with two versions of reality. Sometimes the only way to win the game is to realize the ship was never meant to leave. Realize the ship was never meant to leave the harbor. Fuel the truth at Dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.